My life changed dramatically when I faced my husband's alcoholism. Facing it, I sought the comfort of my husband's friend, deepened my relationship with his friends, leading to an intimate and unexpected night that changed our relationship forever. Remember to rate the video, share your insights in the comments section, and subscribe to stay tuned for our latest stories. The sun dipped low on the horizon, stretching shadows across the yard, while I observed Rick and Rick as they fiddled beneath the hood of my aging Ford. The atmosphere was heavy with the aroma of oil and gasoline, a jarring juxtaposition to the void that had taken residence in our home. My husband Bill, who once illuminated every gathering with his vibrant spirit, had now faded into a mere echo of his past, ensnared by the grip of alcohol. As I stood there, a tumultuous blend of gratitude and frustration coursing through me, I found myself pondering the true price of their generosity. I lingered in the kitchen, observing Rick and Rick as they busied themselves beneath the hood of my aging Ford. The sun dipped below the horizon, stretching elongated shadows across the yard, while the atmosphere hung heavy with the pungent aroma of oil and gasoline. It was a tableau that ought to have evoked warmth, a nostalgic echo of yesteryears when Bill would have been among them, sharing laughter and light-hearted banter. Yet now the mirth had vanished, supplanted by the rhythmic clatter of instruments and the sporadic sound of exertion. My name is Helen, and at 58, life delivered a curveball that caught me completely off guard. My husband Bill, who once illuminated every gathering, had transformed into a mere echo of his vibrant past. The man who once filled the room with his vibrant energy now lingered in the shadows of our living room, a bottle clutched in his hand. His eyes, adrift in a sea of oblivion, rendered our once vibrant home a mere bilb of recollections, where each chamber resonated with the haunting stillness of abandonment. Rick and Rick, the closest companions of Bill, had taken on the role of my unforeseen protectors. Rick, bearing the marks of hard work on his calloused hands and possessing an innate mechanic's intuition, exuded a rugged charm that was impossible to overlook. Rick, in contrast, wore an effortless smile, his very presence a balm to the tension that had woven itself into the fabric of our daily existence. Their presence was no longer solely about the camaraderie they had once enjoyed with Bill. Now it was laced with a palpable concern for my well-being. The car, a vintage Ford that Bill and I had acquired during our more prosperous times, had chosen this very day to surrender to its fate. With Bill unable to assist, I found myself gazing at the inert machine, feeling as isolated as it appeared. It was then that Rick and Rick made their entrance, armed with their tools, prepared to restore what Bill had been unable to revive. As I observed them, a blend of gratitude and frustration churned within me. Thankfulness for their assistance, their compassion, yet a deep-seated frustration with the circumstances, with Bill's decline, with the life we once cherished slipping away like grains of sand. The sun sank beneath the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the landscape. Rick brushed the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, smudging a streak of grease across his forehead. "Almost there, Helen," he exclaimed, his voice tinged with a sense of victory. Rick, with his unwavering optimism, offered me a thumbs up from beneath the car. A wave of emotion washed over me as I observed them, an intimacy woven into their labor, a closeness that had once belonged to Bill. It transcended the mere act of repairing the car. It was about mending something within me, within us, that had remained fractured for far too long. As they toiled away, my mind wandered into the realm of contemplation, pondering the future and the inevitable moment when the car would be repaired and the bill would arrive. It's not merely the financial cost we must consider, but the emotional toll as well. How shall we repay the kindness they extended and the unwavering support they provided? And, most crucially, could I observe as Rick and Rick, their shirts discarded in the face of the sweltering heat, labored diligently beneath the hood of my aging Ford? The afternoon sun blazed overhead, transforming the garage into a sweltering oven, yet their spirits soared, laughter and playful banter echoing through the air, a vivid contrast to the heavy silence that lingered within our home. I offered them cold beers, attempting to convey my gratitude in subtle gestures. As they finished, a wave of despair washed over me. I had no money to settle the bill. The weight of my predicament pressed down on me, not merely from the financial burden, but from the stark awareness of how far we had descended. Rick, his hands still damp from work, cast a gentle smile my way. "Don't worry about it, Helen. We're here for you," he reassured me. Rick nodded in agreement, his eyes shimmering with a warmth that eased my solitude, yet I couldn't help but wonder what price their kindness might exact. The thought lingered as I stood there, observing them gather their tools. The car repair had consumed the better part of the afternoon, and now, with the sun dipping low and casting elongated shadows across the yard, I was enveloped in a blend of relief and anxiety. Their assistance had been indispensable, yet the unvoiced debt loomed like a shadow over our friendship. Rick's rugged charm, his calloused hands familiar with every inch of an engine, had always brought a sense of comfort. Rick, with his easy smile, possessed a unique ability to lighten the mood, even in the darkest of times. They had transcended their roles as mere friends of Bill. They had become my lifeline in this sea of despair. As they prepared to leave, a lingering question occupied my mind about the future. The car was fixed, but what lay ahead for us? "What is this?" About Bill, who was now a mere ghost of the man I married, his descent into the bottle had left me feeling stranded. Much like the car had been before Rick and Rick's intervention, their kindness today was a reminder of what we once had. A time when life was filled with laughter and shared moments. Now those memories seemed to echo through our home. A haunting reminder of better days. I thanked them again, my voice barely above a whisper, overwhelmed by their generosity. Rick gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder, his touch lingering just a moment longer than necessary, sending an unexpected shiver down my spine. Rick's gaze held mine for a second too long, a silent promise of support. As they drove away, I stood in the doorway, watching the taillights disappear down the road. The air was still thick with the scent of oil and gasoline, a tangible reminder of their presence, the intimacy of their work, the closeness they shared. It was a stark contrast to the isolation I felt with Bill. The question remained hanging in the air like the dust motes in the fading light. What would be the cost of their kindness? Would it be just the repair of a car or something more, something that could potentially mend the broken pieces of our lives? Or would it be a debt I could never repay, a reminder of what we, that evening after Bill had passed out from another bout of drinking? The house was eerily quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. I invited Rick and Rick in for a drink, a gesture of hospitality, but also a silent plea for company. As we sat in the dimly lit living room, the conversation turned personal. They spoke of Bill's decline, their frustration evident in their heavy sighs and the way their eyes avoided mine. I felt the weight of their words, the unspoken questions about what had become of us. Then, in a moment of vulnerability, I confessed my financial woes, the mounting bills, the dwindling savings. I expressed my gratitude for their help, not just with the car, but for being there when Bill couldn't. Rick, ever the straightforward fun, leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "Helen, you know we're here for you, no questions asked. But there's something you could do to thank us, something that could help all of us." His proposal was shocking, yet in my desperation and loneliness it felt like an escape. Rick, initially hesitant, looked between Rick and me, his gaze lingering a bit too long on mine. The air was thick with tension, the kind that precedes a storm. Rick's suggestion hung in the air, unspoken but palpable. It was a way out, a way to repay their kindness, but at what cost? The room seemed to close in around us, the dim light casting shadows that danced with our thoughts. I felt a mix of fear and excitement, the kind that comes from stepping into the unknown. Rick's hand found mine, his touch warm and reassuring, yet it sent a shiver of something else through me. Rick, perhaps sensing my hesitation, spoke up, his voice softer. "Helen, we care about you. We want to help, but we also need something in return. It's not just about the car or the money, it's about us, about feeling needed, about connection." His words were like a balm, soothing yet stirring something deep within me. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the unspoken agreement of what might happen next. I could feel the pull of their presence, the promise of an escape from the loneliness that had become my constant companion as the night deepened. The decision loomed before me, stark and clear. Would I cross this line, step into this new territory with them, or would I retreat back into the solitude of my life with Bill? The choice was mine, but the implications would echo through our lives, changing everything. In that moment, I realized the cost of their kindness wasn't just about fixing a car or settling a debt. It was about the bonds we forge in times of need, the sacrifices we make, and the paths we choose when the road ahead is uncertain. The night stretched on, and with each passing second, the decision grew more inevitable, like the slow descent into a dream from which there's no easy awakening. The room was thick with tension as I let Rick upstairs pass Bill's snoring form. The house felt like a stage, each step echoing with the weight of what was about to unfold. In the bedroom, the air was heavy with anticipation. I felt a mix of guilt, excitement, and a strange sense of empowerment. As we crossed the threshold, I turned to them, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is just between us, right?" They nodded, their expressions a mix of desire and concern. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as if to witness the secret we were about to share. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, each beat a drumroll to the inevitable. Rick's eyes were intense, his gaze holding mine with a promise of something more, something forbidden yet irresistible. Rick's hand brushed against mine, a gentle, reassuring touch that sent a shiver through me, not of cold, but of anticipation. I took a deep breath. The scent of the room, a mix of old wood and the faint musk of cologne filling my senses. "I need this," I whispered, more to myself than to them, but they heard, they understood. Rick stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "We're here for you, Helen," he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the silence. His hand found my waist, pulling me gently towards him. The contact was electric, a spark that ignited something deep within me, a part one thought had long been extinguished by Bill's neglect. Rick watched, his eyes reflecting a storm of emotions. "We care about you," he added, his voice softer, almost lost in the thick air. His words were a balm, soothing yet stirring something deep within me. The decision was made not with words, but with the silent agreement of our bodies moving closer together. The room, once a place of solitude and sorrow, now pulsed with a different energy. The shadows danced with our movements, the dim light casting a veil over what was about to happen. I felt Rick's lips on mine, a kiss that was both a question and an answer. It was a kiss that spoke of years of suppressed desire, of the loneliness that had been my constant companion. His touch was firm yet tender, a contrast to the roughness of his hands that had fixed my car, hands that now sought to fix something in me. Rick's touch was different, his fingers tracing lines along my arms, sending waves of goosebumps across my skin. His kisses were gentle, exploring, as if he was trying to memorize every curve of my face. The room spun around us, the reality of our situation blurring into a haze of need and escape. The weight of Bill snoring from downstairs was a distant echo, a reminder of the life I was momentarily stepping away from. As we moved together, the layers of our clothes began to fall away, each piece a symbol of the barriers we were breaking. The air was charged, every breath a shared secret, every touch a promise of something more than just physical release. I felt a surge of empowerment, a reclaiming of my own body, my own desires after years of feeling invisible. Here in this room with these men who had become my lifeline, I was not just Bill's wife, not just a caretaker of a man lost to his own demons. Here I was Helen, alive, desired, and in control. The night stretched on, the decision we made echoing through our actions, changing the fabric of our relationships. It was not just about the physicality, it was about connection, about feeling needed, about the bonds we forge in times of need. As we lay there, the aftermath of our choices settling around us, I realized the cost of their kindness was not just about fixing a car or settling a debt. It was about the sacrifices we make, the paths we choose when the road ahead is uncertain. The night had changed us, altered the course of our lives in ways we couldn't yet fully comprehend. But in that moment, with the warmth of their bodies next to mine, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years, a peace that came from stepping into the unknown. From choosing to live rather than merely exist, the night unfolded in a blur of emotions and sensations. It was an act of rebellion against my life's constraints, a reclaiming of control, albeit in a morally ambiguous way. The physical connection was intense, but it was the emotional release that was most profound. For those hours, I wasn't just Bill's neglected wife. I was desired, appreciated, and in control. Rick's touch was like a spark in the darkness, igniting a fire within me that I thought had long been extinguished. His hands, rough from years of working on engines, now explored my skin with a tenderness that contrasted sharply with their usual roughness. Rick's approach was different, his touch gentle, almost reverent, as if he was afraid I might break. His kisses were soft, exploring, mapping out the contours of my face with a care that made my heart ache. The room seemed to pulse with our shared breaths, the air thick with the scent of our desires. It was a dance of shadows and light, where every movement was both a promise and a confession. We moved together, not just in physicality, but in a shared understanding of our needs, our loneliness, our yearning for connection. As the night wore on, the layers of our clothes fell away, symbolizing the barriers we were breaking down. Each piece discarded was like shedding the weight of my past, the years of feeling invisible, unappreciated. Here in this room with these men who had become my unexpected saviors, I was not just Helen, the caretaker of a man lost to his own demons. Here I was alive, vibrant, and in command of my own narrative. The intimacy was not just about the physical closeness, it was about feeling seen, about the warmth of being needed, about forging bonds in the crucible of our mutual desperation. The act itself was a whirlwind, a storm of sensations that left me breathless, a storm that was both liberating and terrifying in its intensity. Morning came too soon. With the harsh light of day revealing the reality of what had transpired, Rick left quietly, leaving me with a mix of relief and dread. The silence of the house was deafening now, the absence of their presence palpable. I stood at the window watching their car disappear down the road, the dust settling behind them like the aftermath of our night together. The question of how this secret would change the dynamics of our lives hung heavy in the air. Would it be a one-time escape, a moment of madness that we would all agree to forget, or would it be the beginning of something new, something that could either mend or further fracture the fragile threads of our relationships? I felt a pang of guilt as I looked at Bill, still asleep, unaware of the storm that had passed through his home. But beneath the guilt was a burgeoning sense of empowerment. I had made a choice to reclaim something for myself, to step out of the shadows of neglect and into a space where I was the protagonist of my own story. The cost of their kindness was now clear. It wasn't just about fixing a car or settling a debt. It was about the bonds we forge, the sacrifices we make, and the paths we choose when the road ahead is uncertain. The night had changed us, altered the course of our lives in ways we couldn't yet fully comprehend. But in that moment, with the echoes of our shared intimacy still lingering, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years, a peace that came from stepping into the unknown, from choosing to live rather than merely exist. Years have passed since that night, a night that changed the fabric of our lives in ways none of us could have predicted. Bill's condition worsened over time, his health deteriorating until he passed away. It was a somber time, filled with reflections on what had been and what could have been. Now at 75, I look back on that night with a complex mix of regret and understanding. Rick, now older and grayer, still visit occasionally. They come with their tools not just to fix my car, but to share a piece of our past, to keep the memory of Bill alive in the only way they know how. Their visits are no longer about the physical closeness we once shared. Instead, they've evolved into something unspoken but deeply understood. In the quiet of my home, we sit with our drinks, the warmth of the fire casting long shadows across the room. The laughter that once filled these walls has been replaced by a more subdued camaraderie. We talk about the old days, about Bill, about the life we all once knew. There's a comfort in this, in knowing that someone else remembers those times. Someone else understands the weight of the past. Our relationship has transcended the physical. It's about companionship now, about the shared history that binds us. When Rick fixes something around the house, or Rick brings over a new book he thinks I might like, there's an unspoken acknowledgement of our past, a silent agreement that what happened was a moment out of time. A chapter closed but not forgotten. The significance of this ongoing relationship in the twilight of our lives is profound. It's a testament to the resilience of human connection, to the idea that relationships can evolve, heal, and grow beyond their initial form. We've moved from a place of need and desperation to one of mutual respect and care. There's a lesson in this, I think. As I watch Rick's now weathered hands adjust the carburetor on my car, or see Rick's eyes light up when he shares a story from his travels, it's about forgiveness, not just for each other, but for ourselves. We've all made choices, some we regret, others we cherish, but all have shaped us. In these moments, I realize the true cost of their kindness wasn't just about fixing a car or settling a debt. It was about understanding, about the bonds we forge in times of need, and the paths we choose when the road ahead is uncertain. It's about the sacrifices we make, not just for ourselves, but for the people we care about, even if those sacrifices are born from complex, sometimes morally ambiguous places. As we sit in silence, the fire crackling, I feel a peace I hadn't known in years. It's not the peace of forgetting, but of acceptance, of living with the choices we've made. The night that changed everything now feels like a distant memory, yet its echoes are here in the quiet companionship, in the shared drink, in the knowing looks we exchange. This relationship signifies more than just the passage of time. It's a reminder of our shared humanity, of the capacity to love, to forgive, and to find solace in the company of those who have seen us at our most vulnerable. It's about the comfort of knowing someone else remembers, someone else cares, and in that there's a profound sense of not being alone in the world. Even as we age, even as we face the end, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.